Welcome to Pawprints of Valor, where every paw print leads us to a story of courage and heart. Let's begin. The church was quiet in the way only small-town churches can be. Soft light, soft breathing, soft prayers settling into old wooden pews. St. Bridget's had always been a place where silence felt gentle, not heavy. But the silence didn't last. Shadow, the black German shepherd lying beside Detective Maya Ortiz, lifted his head. His ears twitched once, then locked forward. Something in the air shifted. Something only he felt. His whole body tightened like a bowstring pulled too far. "Shadow?" Maya whispered. He didn't look at her. He stood, nose flaring, muscles trembling beneath his coat. And then, he moved. His bark shattered the hush of the sanctuary. Startled, parishioners turned, gasped, stepped back. Cameras rose. Whispers scattered like startled birds. Shadow wasn't attacking. He was searching. His paws scraped hard across the stone floor as he lunged toward the sanctuary steps, dragging Maya with him. His tail was rigid, his breath sharp, his eyes fixed on the crucifix towering above the altar. "What's gotten into him?" Someone whispered. Shadow didn't hear. He pressed his nose to the floor, sniffed once, then began to dig, desperate, frantic, claws sparking against stone. A guttural growl rolled through his chest, the kind he used when he found explosives buried under rubble overseas. But here, there was no rubble, no war, just a church, a cross, and a floor that shouldn't have smelled like fear. Father Gabriel froze at the front, rosary, halfway lifted. Behind him, Deacon Cole went pale. Shadow barked again. Louder. Urgent. Maya pulled on his harness. "Shadow, heal!" He didn't heal. Something beneath the floor was wrong. Very wrong. What no one knew, not yet, was that Shadow wasn't just reacting to a scent. He was answering a heartbeat he could barely hear. A heartbeat crying out from somewhere deep under the sanctuary tiles. A heartbeat the world had forgotten. And Shadow, stubborn, loyal, battle-scarred Shadow, was the only one who refused to let it stay buried. By morning, the video had already left Willow Creek and begun multiplying across the internet. Police dog loses it in church. Miracle or omen? Dog senses something beneath the cross. Maya hated every one of them. Shadow lay under her desk at the sheriff's office, chin on his paws, pretending to nap. But she could see the tension in him. The way his tail twitched at every slammed drawer, the way his ears angled toward sounds no one else noticed. Most dogs in retirement age slowed down. Shadow never learned how. 2 tours as a military detection canine had carved instincts into him that never turned off. He'd saved soldiers by barking at dirt that hid explosives, by dragging a wounded man out of collapsing debris, by refusing to give up when everyone else already had. He was supposed to be done with all that. They both were. Maya took a breath and replayed the church video. Shadow. Calm 1 second. Electric the next. Not aggressive. Not confused. Focused. The way he got when he caught human scent in disaster zones. A knock broke her thoughts. Sheriff Dan Keller leaned in. Father Gabriel called again. Says the stain under the crucifix spread overnight. Maintenance checked, no pipes, no leaks. So he wants you and Shadow back there. Says the parishioners are already talking about signs and miracles, and he'd like to avoid a riot. Maya groaned. We're cops, not paranormal investigators. Keller shrugged. Maybe, but that dog of yours was trying to tell us something yesterday. Under the desk, Shadow opened his eyes. Waiting. Always waiting. Maya grabbed her jacket. All right, partner, let's see what's haunting your nose. Shadow stood instantly, the limp from his old injury barely noticeable, until it was... Maya rested a hand on his back, grounding herself on the same dog who had once carried her through a firefight she didn't think she'd survive. Easy today, she murmured. Shadow nuzzled her hand once. He had no intention of taking it easy. Saint. Bridget's looked different in daylight. Brighter. Cleaner. Less like a place where walls whispered. But the moment Shadow stepped through the doors, Maya felt him change. His head lifted. His tail stilled. His breath deepened, slow and deliberate, the way he sampled air on old bomb sites. Detective Ortiz. Father Gabriel met her halfway down the aisle. His voice was warm, but his eyes, they were tired in a way that felt older than his years. Thank you for coming. Again. Shadow ignored the priest completely. He moved forward, paws clicking on stone, nose low, tracing invisible lines carved not by hands, but by scent. Scent only he could read. The crucifix above the sanctuary glowed in morning light, but the floor beneath it held something darker. The stain, larger now, spreading through grout lines like a bruise beneath skin. Nobody touched this? Maya asked. Gabriel shook his head. No one. Our sacristan roped it off. Some parishioners wanted to collect samples. His mouth tightened. I discourage that. Shadow reached the edge of the roped square, then veered left. Not to the stain, not to the crucifix, to the narrow wooden door beside it. Maya frowned. What's behind that? Maintenance crawl space, Gabriel answered. Hasn't been opened in years. It's... Shadow barked sharply, cutting him off. One paw lifted, tapping the door. Not scratching, not digging. Pointing. It was his alert for human scent. Maya's gut tightened. A faint clatter echoed from the side chapel. Deacon Cole appeared. Crisp collar. Perfect smile. But his eyes flicked nervously to the door Shadow was pawing. I really don't think, he began. We're checking it, Maya said. She tried the handle. Locked. Cole sighed dramatically and produced a key ring from his pocket. He isolated the correct key with practiced ease. If you must insist. Shadow didn't wait for permission. The moment the latch clicked, he shoved his weight against the door. A cool breath of stale, trapped air rushed out. Maya's flashlight cut into the dark. Pipes. Dust. A low concrete crawl space. Nothing unusual. Except Shadow didn't look confused. He looked certain. He moved inside without hesitation. Tail stiff, paws silent. Maya followed, crouching low, and froze as Shadow began sniffing the floor, then pressed his chest flat and emitted a soft, trembling whine, the kind he only made when he knew something was suffering, or had suffered. Here, beneath them. The crawl space pressed in around them, low ceiling, cold concrete, the faint metallic tang of old pipes. Dust rose in thin clouds with every movement, glowing in the narrow beam of Maya's flashlight. Shadow moved ahead with purpose, not hesitation. His shoulders brushed the walls, and every few steps he paused, inhaling deeply, cataloging the layers of scent trapped in the stone. Maya knew this version of him, the one that surfaced on disaster calls, the one who found survivors the world had already given up on. Easy, she murmured, though her voice sounded small in the tight space. Shadow stopped. Not at the walls. Not at the pipes. At the floor. A square of cement. Lighter than the rest. Edges uneven. Like someone had rushed to finish the job before anyone noticed. Shadow lowered his nose to a thin crack along its edge. One breath. Two. Then, his entire body tensed. He pawed the border once. Twice. Then let out a sound Maya rarely heard from him. A soft, wounded whimper. Her stomach knotted. Shadow only made that sound when he detected trapped human scent. Old, faint, but still there. She knelt beside him, pressing her hand to the cement patch. It felt wrong, too hollow, too thin beneath her fingers. Maya! Sheriff Keller's voice buzzed over the radio, distant and tinny. You good down there? She swallowed. We've got a suspicious concrete fill under the sanctuary. Roughly 2 feet square. Shadow's breathing quickened. He pressed his shoulder against Maya, urging her closer, as if begging her to listen to what he felt. Her flashlight flicked across something near the wall, a glint of metal embedded in older cement. She brushed away dust. A small, silver locket, heart-shaped. The chain snapped clean through. Her breath hitched. She'd seen this exact design on a missing person flyer 6 months earlier. Lily Hart, age 16, last seen leaving choir practice. Shadow whined again, nudging the locket with his nose, then turning back to the patch of concrete, almost pressing his ear against it. Maya felt her heartbeat in her throat. "Sheriff," she said quietly into the radio, eyes locked on the cement square. "We're treating St. Bridget's as a potential crime scene, and I want a forensic unit, now." Shadow backed up, planting himself between the patch and the exit, as if guarding it, as if telling her someone was here, someone still needs to be found. By evening, St. Bridget's was no longer a church. It was a sealed-off scene, ringed with yellow tape and flooded with cold white light from forensic towers. Snowmelt dripped from the gutters, tapping the plastic tarps in a slow, uneven rhythm, like a heartbeat that didn't know if it wanted to keep going. Outside, people gathered in quiet clusters. Some clutched rosaries, others clutched phones. All of them stared at the doors, as if the truth inside might come spilling out. Maya didn't blame them. Her hands hadn't stopped shaking since she'd climbed out of the crawlspace. A forensic tech approached with the radar unit, pushing the heavy cart down the central aisle of the sanctuary. "We'll scan before breaking anything," he told her. Shadow trotted beside him, steps slow but deliberate. His nose hovered low, tracking something invisible threaded through the stone. Maya kept a hand on his harness, not to restrain him, just to feel grounded. The radar screen flickered to life, lines tracing beneath the sanctuary floor. Normal slabs merged into solid gray, until one section hiccuped. A void. A narrow cavity carved where none should be. "There," the tech murmured. "Beneath your patch." Shadow barked once, sharp, confirming what Maya feared. A soft voice behind her made her heart twist. "Detective Ortiz?" She turned. Mrs. Hart stood just inside the doorway, her winter coat still unbuttoned, hair windblown as if she had run the whole way. Her eyes darted between Maya and the equipment, heavy with something between dread and impossible hope. You called me," Mrs. Hart whispered. "Does that mean—" Maya wanted to lie. She wanted to promise everything would be all right. But Shadow nudged her leg, grounding her again, reminding her that truth, hard or soft, was why they were here. "We found something unusual beneath the sanctuary," Maya said gently. "We're still confirming. I didn't want you hearing it from strangers on Facebook." Mrs. Hart pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "She loved this place," she whispered. "She'd sing here after choir practice, even when everyone else had gone." Shadow stepped forward and, without hesitation, pressed his head into the woman's palm. She froze, then crumpled to her knees, arms wrapping around him like he was the last warm thing on earth. "Please," she whispered into his fur. "If my Lily is here, don't leave her alone." Shadow closed his eyes, leaning into her grief. Then he rose, turning back towards the sanctuary steps. He was ready to show them more. He was ready to dig up the truth the church floor had tried to bury. The sanctuary lights dimmed as the forensic team positioned portable lamps around the patch of concrete. Shadows stretched across the stone floor, tall and solemn like silent witnesses standing guard. Maya knelt beside the square again. Shadow stood on her right, eyes fixed, body tense. He wasn't barking now. He didn't need to. His stillness said everything. "Start the cut," Maya instructed. A circular saw shrieked to life, the blade biting through cement. Dust curled upward in pale ribbons, catching the lamplight like ghostly threads, unraveling from the floor. Shadow flinched, but didn't retreat. His ears flattened. His breath quickened. This sound reminded him of places he'd trained to forget. Maya slid a steadying hand to his shoulder. "It's all right. I'm here." He blinked once, anchoring himself to her voice. When the saw powered down, 2 techs lifted the loosened slab. Warm, stale air rose from the cavity beneath. A trapped breath escaping after too long in the dark. A narrow space appeared, not deep, not wide, just large enough for something small, or someone small. Shadow leaned in, nose trembling as he pulled the scent into memory he wished he didn't have. "Jesus!" one tech whispered. Inside the cavity lay a pale scrap of fabric, a choir sash, frayed at the edge, embroidered with tiny gold thread. Saint Brigid's emblem. Dust caked the folds, but the stitching still shimmered faintly. Mrs. Hart sobbed behind them, but quietly, like a mother afraid to disturb a sleeping child. Maya reached down with gloved hands and lifted the sash. Under it, half buried in dust, lay something else. A hair tie, bright blue, plastic heart charm attached, the exact one Lily wore in every school photo. Maya's chest squeezed. "We're logging this," she murmured, her voice unsteady. Shadow suddenly sat straight, nose snapping upward. His head pivoted, left, then sharply right, toward the hallway leading to the sacristy. A low growl vibrated through him. "What is it?" Maya whispered. Shadow didn't move. He was listening. Footsteps, faint and hurried, echoed from behind the sacristy door. Not a ghost, not a memory. Someone alive. Someone who shouldn't be there at all. Maya stood, heart pounding. "Shadow, with me." He lowered his head, muscles coiled. Together, they turned toward the darkness at the end of the hall, the place where secrets had learned to walk. The hallway to the sacristy felt far longer at night. The lamps behind them faded into a muted glow, leaving the corridor washed in half-light, just enough for shapes to form, but not enough for comfort. The air carried something damp, metallic, uneasy. Shadow moved first, slow, silent, every step placed with the precision of a dog who had once crossed minefields. Maya followed, hand hovering over her holster, not drawing yet, but one breath away. "Whoever's back here," she called gently, "this is an active investigation. Please step out slowly." Silence. Then, another footstep. Soft. Barely a whisper, but Shadow heard it as clearly as thunder. He growled, not loud, not threatening, but like a warning drawn from some deep place in him that did not forget danger. Maya reached the sacristy door and tested the handle. It turned, unlocked. She exchanged a look with Shadow. 3, 2, 1. She pushed it open. The sacristy was dim, lit only by a single candle left burning beside the vestment cabinets. Shadows danced across embroidered garments, hung in neat rows, their swaying making the room feel alive. But someone had been here. A drawer was left ajar. A robe spilled onto the floor. Dust disturbed in a trail that led toward the back storage alcove. Maya motioned to Shadow. "Track." He lowered his head, inhaling deeply, scanning, filtering. Then he stopped. A scent he recognized, one that didn't belong to any church volunteer. One he'd traced under the sanctuary floor, faint and fading, but here it was fresh, strong. Shadow's ears snapped forward. Maya's radio crackled suddenly. "Detective Ortiz, we've got movement outside. Someone slipped past the south door." Shadow barked. "One sharp, urgent call?" He wanted pursuit. Now, Maya bolted after him as he charged through the sacristy hall, claws skidding on polished tile. They burst through the side exit into the cold night air. A figure sprinted across the church courtyard, dark coat, hood up, moving fast despite dragging something behind them. Maya shouted, "Police! Stop!" The figure didn't stop. Shadow didn't hesitate. He launched forward, a dark blur slicing through moonlight, chasing a fleeing silhouette that had just made one fatal mistake. They'd been close enough for Shadow to know their scent, and a scent Shadow knew was a truth he would never let escape. The courtyard stones were slick from the evening frost, glimmering under moonlight. The hooded figure sprinted across them, slipping once, catching himself, then bolting harder toward the parking lot. Shadow closed the distance like a released arrow. Maya ran behind, breath burning in her chest. "Shadow, stay on him!" Shadow didn't need the command. His training lived in his bones. He tracked the fleeing man the way he once pursued insurgents through alleyways in Kandahar. Silent, relentless, precise. The figure reached the iron gate, pushed, found it locked. He spun around, panic flaring. For a heartbeat, under the yard lamp, Maya saw his face. Deacon Cole, his pupils blown wide with fear. "Maya, detective, wait!" he stammered. "This isn't what you think." Shadow's growl cut through the air. He lowered into a stance Maya recognized instantly. Controlled, ready, not attacking, blocking. He placed his body between Cole and the gate. A living barricade. Cole raised both hands. "I wasn't running from you. I swear." Maya reached them, gun drawn, but pointed low. "Then why are you sprinting across a crime scene at midnight?" Cole swallowed hard. Sweat glistened at his hairline despite the cold. "I heard noises," he said. "I came to check. Then I saw movement. I thought someone was trying to break in. I panicked." Shadow barked once, sharp, refusing the lie. Maya narrowed her eyes. "You panicked enough to sprint away from law enforcement?" Cole's gaze flicked to the church. His voice trembled. "You don't understand what's happening in there." Shadow took a slow step closer, nose raised, breathing in Cole's scent. And then Maya saw it, the moment the dog made the connection. Shadow stiffened, his ears pinned back. His body trembled with a deep, visceral recognition. Not just fear, not just memory. This was the scent from beneath the concrete. The scent trapped in the crawlspace dust. The scent Shadow had been grieving for. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. "Shadow, easy." Cole stepped back, panic spilling over. "You don't know what he's capable of. He'll hurt me." Maya cut him off. "He hasn't hurt anyone, but he knows something about you." Cole froze. Shadow's nose lowered to the man's wrist, hovering, not touching. Then he looked up, eyes burning with meaning. Maya didn't yet understand, but she would. Shadow had just identified their first living connection to the girl beneath the floor. Cole's breathing turned shallow, almost ragged. His back pressed against the locked gate as if he could melt through the iron to escape Shadow's gaze. Maya kept her gun lowered, but firm. "Deacon, here's your chance. Tell me why Shadow knows your scent." Cole shook his head too quickly. I help with storage, vestments, donations. I'm everywhere in the church." Shadow barked, short, sharp, almost offended by the lie. Maya stepped closer. "You want to try again?" Cole's eyes darted from Maya to Shadow, then back. Fear bloomed across his face, not of arrest, but of the dog in front of him. A dog who didn't bark at random. A dog who had smelled suffering buried under concrete. "I didn't do anything," Cole whispered. "I just helped carry a crate down to the crawlspace months ago. That's all. Father Gabriel asked me. He said it was old tile. I didn't know." Shadow barked again, cutting him off, not angry, correcting him. Maya felt her pulse spike. "Shadow caught your scent inside the patch cavity. Not above it. Inside. That means you were closer to that space than any crate would justify." Cole's face crumpled. "I didn't open anything. I swear." "Then why run?" Cole swallowed hard, voice cracking. "Because I saw someone leaving Lily's memorial table yesterday. Someone who shouldn't have been anywhere near it. Maya stiffened. Who? Cole opened his mouth. But before he could answer, Shadow jerked his head toward the far left corner of the courtyard. His body locked, tail straight, ears slicing the cold air. A new scent, a familiar one, someone watching them. Maya followed Shadow's gaze and caught the faint shape of a figure slipping behind the parish hall, dark coat blending with night, footsteps light enough to disappear. Shadow growled, a low, vibrating warning. Cole whispered, terrified, That's him. That's the man I saw. The one who told Father Gabriel to keep quiet about the repairs. Maya's breath caught. Not Cole. Not Gabriel. Someone else. Someone who had been standing behind the scenes the entire time. Shadow lunged forward, ready to chase, but Maya grabbed his harness. Not yet. We don't know what we're dealing with. Cole sagged in relief. Too soon. Shadow wasn't calming. He was shaking. Not with fear, but with recognition. That scent, the one drifting from the parish hall, was the same scent he'd followed under the sanctuary floor. The same scent clinging to Lily's sash. The same scent tied to a place no living person should have been. A scent Shadow had never forgotten. Shadow pulled against the harness with a force Maya wasn't used to. Not wild, not reactive, but purposeful. Controlled urgency. The kind that said the trail is hot. Don't waste time. Maya released just enough slack for him to lead while keeping him close. The parish hall loomed ahead, its windows dark, its brick walls swallowing moonlight. A single security lamp flickered above the service door, making the shadows look like they breathed. Cole hovered behind Maya like a guilty conscience. Shadow sniffed along the path, nose skimming the ground, then lifted suddenly, tracking scent in the air instead of the earth. Someone hadn't gone far. Someone was still close enough to smell. Maya gestured for Cole to stay back. Shadow crept forward, paws silent on the concrete. At the door, Maya tested the handle. Unlocked. Shadow stiffened. Something inside shifted. So quiet Maya wasn't sure she heard it, until Shadow growled, deep and protective. She pushed the door open. The parish hall kitchen stretched ahead. Sterile countertops, stacked chairs, half-drunk cups of tea abandoned by choir volunteers earlier that evening. Normal. Quiet. Too quiet. Shadow moved in low. Breath steady. Eyes sharp. Maya swept left. Clear. She swept right. A figure bolted from behind the storage racks. Stop! Maya shouted. Shadow shot forward before she could react, crossing the room in a blur. But the man was fast. He shoved a rolling cart into Shadow's path, metal clattering as it toppled. Shadow leapt it, but the second it slowed him, the man dove into the hallway. Maya sprinted after them. She rounded the corner just as the man slammed out through the back exit into the alley, light catching his face for a split second. Enough. A scar across the jaw. Hair shaved close. Eyes cold. Distant. Not a parishioner. Not a church worker. A stranger. But Shadow didn't chase him outside. He stopped. Right at the threshold. Maya skidded beside him. Shadow! Go! But he didn't. He stood rigid, staring down, nose pointed at the cracked cement doorstep. Maya frowned. Shadow, what is it? Shadow didn't answer with a bark. He answered by lying down, front paws stretched forward, chin pressed against the cement, breathing slow and deliberate. Alert posture for one thing only, live human scent. Faint, but present, under the alley floorboards. Not the man who ran. Someone else. Someone who needed help. Someone who might still be alive. Cold wind swept through the narrow alley, carrying the metallic scent of rusted dumpsters and the faint sweetness of incense drifting from the church. But Shadow wasn't smelling any of that. He was breathing something else. Something fragile. Something human. Maya knelt beside him, pressing her palm to the cracked cement. It felt solid. Ordinary. But Shadow's nose had never lied. Not in war zones, not in disaster ruins, and certainly not tonight. "Get me a thermal camera," Maya called into her radio. Within seconds, 2 deputies jogged over with equipment. The thermal sensor swept across the alley floor, painting colors on the screen: blue for cold, yellow for warmth, red for heat. Most of the slab glowed blue, but one corner, one tiny, uneven square, pulsed faint yellow. A heartbeat. Small, weak, but alive. Maya's breath hitched. "We're cutting this up. Now!" The deputies positioned tools, but Shadow wouldn't move. He anchored himself over the warm patch, refusing to leave the spot, as if afraid the faint life below might slip away the moment they looked away. Maya touched his collar. "Shadow, you've done enough. Let them work." But Shadow wouldn't budge. He lowered his chest to the cement again, whimpering softly, coaxing, encouraging, as if telling whoever was down there, "Hold on. I'm here. Don't stop fighting." The saw buzzed to life. Cracks spidered outward. Cement dust filled the air. Shadow backed up only when the deputies physically nudged him aside. And even then, he stayed pressed to Maya's leg, trembling with worry he couldn't hide. After 2 long minutes, the slab shifted. A deputy pried it up, and everyone froze. Beneath the cement was a wooden hatch. New wood. Fresh nails. A makeshift lid hammered shut in a rush. Maya's stomach twisted. "Pry it," she ordered. The men wedged crowbars into the seams. Wood splintered. The lid snapped open. A gasp rippled through the alley. Inside the narrow cavity, crumpled like a wounded bird, lay a teenage girl, skin pale, hair tangled, eyes barely open. Lily Hart. Alive. Her lips parted, a broken whisper escaping them. "Shadow!" Shadow whimpered, then lowered himself until his head rested on the rim of the opening, his nose gently brushing her fingers. Her hand twitched. She knew him. She'd remembered the dog who never stopped searching. Maya swallowed a sob. "Get medics. Now." Shadow stayed where he was, refusing to leave Lily's side as first responders rushed in. For the first time that night, hope wasn't a theory. It had a heartbeat. Lily was rushed into an ambulance amid a flurry of hands, blankets, IV lines, and frantic voices trying to stay calm. The alley, moments ago a place of panic and darkness, had shifted into something strangely sacred, lit by red and white lights, flashing across the brick walls like a trembling prayer. Shadow rode with her. He jumped into the ambulance before anyone could stop him, planting himself beside the stretcher. Lily's fingers curled instinctively around the edge of his fur, weak but deliberate. No medic dared move him after that. "She needs the comfort," one of them said softly. It wasn't protocol. But tonight, protocol bowed to instinct. Maya followed in her cruiser. She kept replaying the look in Lily's eyes, dull, exhausted, but alive. Alive because Shadow refused to ignore a scent everyone else overlooked. Alive because he didn't trust explanations that didn't match his nose. Alive because he stayed when fear told others to walk away. Willow Creek gathered outside the hospital before dawn. Parishioners, neighbors, choir kids, cafe workers, people who didn't normally stand together now clutched coffee cups and each other's hands. The fear that had hung over town like fog started to lift as whispers turned to hopeful murmurs. "She's stable. She's talking." She asked for her mom. Mrs. Hart arrived first. She ran down the corridor, sobbing, her coat half unbuttoned, just as before. This time, Maya didn't need words. She stepped aside, letting the mother rush into the recovery room. Lily lay propped up, oxygen tube in place, cheeks pale but warming. Shadow rested his head on the bed, eyes half closed in protective calm. Mrs. Hart reached for her daughter, breaking into quiet, grateful tears. "My baby, you're here. You're here." Lily smiled faintly. "Shadow found me. I knew he would." Shadow thumped his tail once, without lifting his head. Doctors explained the truth. Dehydration, mild hypothermia, bruising, but no fatal injuries. Someone had hidden her in a shallow pit meant to be permanent, but they hadn't done the last step. Not yet. She had hours left, a nurse whispered to Maya. Not days. Hours. Maya's breath faltered. Her hand found Shadow's neck. You heard her, didn't you? You felt her. Shadow leaned into her touch. He had never abandoned survivors in war. He would not abandon a child in his own town. A week later, Willow Creek felt different. Not louder. Not busier. Just softer. Like the town had taken one long breath after months of holding it in. Snow, on the church roof, melted into thin silver lines. Candlelight inside St. Brigid's flickered with a gentler warmth. People walked up the steps slower, pausing to rest their palms on the old railing, almost as if apologizing for not noticing what lay beneath their feet sooner. Shadow became something of a quiet legend. Kids left drawings of him, taped to the precinct windows. Someone crocheted him a scarf. The bakery sent over canine-shaped biscuits. Maya wouldn't let him eat because his stomach was too sensitive. But Shadow didn't seem to care about any of that. He only cared about visiting Lily. Every morning, Maya and Shadow stopped by the hospital before shift. Lily had moved from ICU to a regular room. Each day her color returned, her voice steadier. The first time she took a step with physical therapy, Shadow walked beside her, slow, matching her pace, refusing to look away. You stayed, Lily whispered to him once. I wasn't sure anyone else would. Shadow nudged her knee, as if saying he never had doubts. Meanwhile, investigators worked quietly behind the scenes. The scarred man who fled the parish hall, identified as Darren Brandt, a contractor with a criminal record, was arrested 2 towns over. His truck held tools, cement dust, and a ledger linking him to illicit repair jobs across multiple parishes. When confronted with Lily's rescue, Brandt went silent. The kind of silence that hides guilt. But the town didn't focus on the darkness anymore. They focused on what had survived it. On a cold Friday morning, St. Brigid's held a small gathering. A reopening of hope, Father Gabriel called it. Not a mass, not a ceremony, just neighbors, standing in a circle beneath soft winter light. Lily walked in slowly with her mother. The congregation parted for her, and Shadow, sitting beside Maya near the front, lifted his head the moment he smelled her approach. Lily knelt beside him, slipping her arms around his neck. The room fell into reverent quiet. For the first time since the night she was taken, Lily whispered something with conviction rather than despair. I knew you'd hear me. Shadow closed his eyes and breathed her in, tail swaying gently. He had brought her back to the world. And now the world felt a bit safer because a dog refused to stop listening. In a world where silence can hide so much, Shadow reminded us that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a single bark in an empty church, a paw pressed against cold cement, a heartbeat heard when no one else was listening. Lily survived because one dog refused to ignore what others overlooked, because loyalty doesn't need proof, and love doesn't need language. If Shadow's courage touched your heart today, we invite you to stay with us, to keep exploring these stories, where animals become our quiet heroes, and where every act of instinct becomes a miracle of its own. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because every paw print has a story, and every story deserves to be heard.